Expo Comic-Con. And there's no other way to start it out than with a retrospective of the one and only Len Wein, who, you know, I always think that I've done a lot of comic books, but I've only been doing it for 23 years. But how long have you been now?
I've been doing it for 45.
45 years? So you started when you were
18.
How did that happen? Did you want to be an intern or?
Well, back in those days, days of covered wagons, DC used to have a weekly tour of their offices. Thursday mornings, they would give a tour. There used to be Walter, I can't remember his name. We used to give a tour of the offices. So I would skip school, go once a month, Marvel, so a few other guys, and we would go over to DC and take a tour. So,
you know, again and again,
because we were in the offices.
You know, I started out at Marvel doing Marvel Comics Presents for the 8-page stories, and I have to say that was a tremendous learning curve because you had to tell, you know, pretty much a beginning and end. Like nowadays with decompressed stories, they just go on and on, they don't go anywhere. But those original stories must have been a lot of training for you.
Well, that's exactly it. I learned how to structure it. Get in, get it told, get out, in as few pages as possible. Which is a whole other art, as you would say today.
Yeah, nowadays, I don't think we would know how to do it anymore.
No, I don't think the editors know either right now. It's a lost art. In fact, I think I'm the last practitioner.
And can you remember your scariest story from your house? Your scary story?
Well, this is all comic stuff. It wasn't really scary.
But no particular stories that was like the one that you
well, the original Swamp Thing. I just wasn't having much fun with that. So,
yeah, it does change when you have to switch up an artist. Oh wait, well that's so funny. This is Louise Simonson. It was originally, he drew it from, was she an editor at the time?
No, it was just one of the gang. We all love Louise. In fact, the villain of the original short story is modeled on my Kaluta, and the hero is just the hero.
Well, Bernie used to do a lot of photo stuff, didn't he? Like,
not as much as some guys. I mean, some folks who work entirely in photography. Bernie just did it occasionally, but we all adored Easy's because he was arrow kids.
It's very changed a bunch.
The hair is a little lighter. She's got a few more miles on her. She's not even that. He gets to keep his job. And that's what a lot of guys do. I work for editors and come from other places. Many of these are not one of those were artists, writers, people who had other skills, and they had as they were required. The editors today are only editors. They don't have any other ancillary skills, most of them. And most of them never taught anybody how to edit. So they're sort of winging it.
I have to say, I envy you guys because there was a time, I guess it was in the 70s, where you would open up a book and it would say, writer-editor Len Wein or writer-editor Marv Wolfman. And I longed for the day that I could just, you know, do that. But those days are long gone. But that must have been, was it fun? Was it different than, you know?
Well, I never had to fight with anybody. I'm writing my story. I got along with people. Just can't do it.
So it's not like today where there's the editor-in-chief and then there's 30 other editors.
Exactly. It was an entirely different book. It took until I think you shoot it on him to do it. And that's what we fought for it. To get an editorial staff. People have a reasonable amount of time responsible. But it burned us all out. It was the editorial outfit. Every year was my favorite achievement because he just couldn't do the job and survive.
The editorial, you just said something about the, when you were talking about arguing, like, there was a time in the 90s where I remember, in the 90s, where I'd get in fights with editorial about things that I wanted to do. And they would play back, or they would say, or they would go up the food chain, go up to Tom Falco, come back, they would debate, da, da, da. But nowadays, it seems like there's more like a edict, like, you go Before Watchmen. And do you, you were the original editor on Watchmen. And was there ever a time between now and Before Watchmen that you would thought this day would ever come, that they would actually get around to doing this? Or?
I figure anything is possible. If you live long enough, you'll see it. We gave Alan part of the century to himself. He just didn't want to do it anymore. And so finally, the editorial issue with DC said, this is absurd. Take leave of the characters and do nothing with them. So they decided to let go and without it.
And over the years, like, did you think that, I mean, like, were you in editorial after that? Like, did you think when it came out it was a hit and like, oh, let's follow this up, let's do another, or?
Actually, the Watchmen was the last thing I did was television. So I was very involved in editorial. Literally, as soon as it was done.
And did you find it as fascinating at the time as everyone else? I mean, like, was it, I'll just say this, is that like,
Ozymandias, or at least rationalizing it, or accurate than anything. I always thought it was a 11th brilliant issue, the 12th issue was a rip-off of an old Lobdell and Len story. And when I told that one, his response was, well, I've never done it. So, and I said, that doesn't justify you doing a story that's already been done. Someone else did. The fact that you have that, that's not allowing you to do it. But you know, how sort of when we are.
and how do you think the movie handled it?
I actually think the movie handled it. It kept it more in-house, so to speak, by putting it all documented.
And you're doing Ozzy now. Was there any other? I mean, was he always your favorite character of all of them, or would you? Was there anything else that you would rather tackle?
Well, I like Night Owl. He was more because there's a lot more than that.
Was someone else? Another character?
Yes.
You can't say who. Give us his initials. I'm going to tell you a funny story. Is I was at a comic book convention back in the 90s, and you know, I introduced myself. I think the time. And what happened was this kid came up to me, and he had his sample pages, as they often do around the convention. This kid had a notepad with lined paper, and he had his sketches on that. And I was just a freelancer, but none of the editors would take the time to look at it, because right away, when you down, they go, oh, you know, it's not on paper, it's not in a portfolio, it's just a bunch of sketches. And I was like, I looked at it and I was stunned because he looked kind of like John Byrne. The kid was 17 years old, and the art looked like John Byrne, not the kid. And so I said, listen, I'm going to give you a plot and go home and tonight get a drawing pad. He was staying overnight in New York. I said, get a drawing pad and just kind of go with this plot, just see where it goes. Full scripts or
I tend to do page panel work.
and then add the script later. Yeah, that's all I do. Yeah.
Dialogue again. That way, if the artist has to throw in something storytelling, I can compensate the script. It is bizarre. Jay is meticulous, but he is so slow that thank God his pencils are extraordinary. Because what we're doing is basically inking mechanically, you know, like you scan it and the gray turns to black. And so he's inking his own work electronically without doing it. But he is so slow. I mean, so far, the first 3 issues have gotten him a half hour before I had to go to the room. And yet he gets in. We haven't shipped late.
Does he break down the whole story first, or no? So we can work from there.
The story.
Okay.
Yes. So, yes.
And you haven't missed any shipping, right?
No. Well, the whole idea behind Before Watchmen is that there be an issue of the project that way, but not necessarily everything. So I get weird gaps. There's 5 weeks between issues 1 and 2, 5 weeks between issues 2 and 3, 7 weeks between issues 3 and 4. And so they were adjusting. And I got some more errors. But there aren't layouts that line this when I get home. I may have done change on it.
You heard it here first, folks. Death of Jay Lee.
If he dies, I was here. Okay, everybody?
Yeah. What you were the original editor on the X-Men, Giant Size X-Men #1, and at the time it was a reprint book. And was there?
The idea was to bring it back as an international team. An international team of characters who came from the countries where the book was selling. So we could sell it better. So when I created Wolverine in the Hulk, I made him a Canadian mutant so that he got Canadian hero. I never actually thought I would be doing whoever it was originally scheduled had to drop out before the book even started. And so they gave me
The X-Men or the Wolverine?
before the book ever started, so they gave it to me. And I took it since they gave me Dave Cockrum as my artist. And Dave, God bless him, had a bunch of notebooks full of characters he designed. There was nothing to go with most of them. He just loved designing costumes. So he had put together a book of dozens and dozens of characters. And he and I sat down and I went through those notebooks and found characters who looked interesting. Nobody ever told me to this day what countries that the book was selling in. So I have no.
Into editing or no?
Well, that's what happened. I had taken over at that point being editor-in-chief. I had been writing several books a month, and X-Men was one of them. And I realized quickly that I can only write one book a month. And the Hulk was my favorite character, not one of the books I was writing. So I figured, all right, I mean, who knew what was going to happen with the X-Men? But I had plotted what was originally Giant Size X-Men #2, which became X-Men numbers 94, 95, sort of the live book, where we got. So I plotted both parts of that, actually, including the death of Thunderbird. All these plans beginning and we got to the book. At that point, Chris was one of my assistant editors. Sat in that little cubbyhole outside my office. And as I'm sitting there when they go saying about it, I'm going to have to go the X-Men. Suddenly Chris is waving his arms like a windmill. I'll take it, I'll take it, I'll do it, I'll take it. I said, anybody that enthusiastic deserves to get the shot. So
And how long did he stay on the?
17 years.
Oh no, I'm sorry. How long did he stay in that? Slow build up. But what do you think set it apart from all the other books that Chris was? Because he was doing art most at the time, right?
Yes.
Well,
Took over for me, because I ended up sort of co-creating it. I think it did okay, so better than the original, until the issue where Jim Shooter agreed that Jean Grey had to die for the asparagus. Yes,
this is Len's theme song. We're hearing it for the first time. So if you guys like it, do you like this theme song for Len? Okay.
I decided I need backup music. I don't have a group of people, just follow me where I go.
I'm waiting for some huge dramatic pronouncement you're going to make.
I am your father.
Wow. Yes, that's true. It did not pick up, but like, you know.
What happened to the soldier? Tell me about the breed. How did that end? Finish your damn story sometime.
And why do you? I mean, was it he had too many stories to tell, or he?
I think it was a combination of too many stories to tell and a short attention span.
Time comics were 17 pages, right, for a long time, yeah.
I mean, that was always Jack's problem. It was almost exactly the opposite. Jack Kirby had so many ideas that he would come up with and do it every month, and Stan, God bless him, would occasionally go, you know, this is wonderful. Let's save these for 6 months and expand on this other great idea you had this month. And let's see where that all takes us for a few months.
Did you work under Stan for a while or no?
Stan was there, but not in charge. I worked for Lloyd. But Stan was always there. His office was down the hall, corner office. And occasionally, when I stayed on his cover editor.
Ultimate Spider-Man, and they were all him swinging through the city. They were, you don't know the villain, you don't know, I mean, like, do you agree, disagree?
I completely agree. In fact, I think at Marvel for a couple of years, it was actually an edict that they all be generic covers so that they could repurpose the art for other things.
How many times you repurpose 300 shots of Spider-Man swinging through the city? But
the problem, again, is editors who take someone's original one-shot line and they take it as gospel. There was a period when I was editing for Marvel where Iron Man had a nose on his mask, which was the stupidest thing I've ever seen. And this all came about with Stan walking through John Reader's office one day, looking at a shot of Iron Man in profile, and saying, this guy doesn't have a nose, he needs a nose. And John took that as gospel, because Stan had said it. And John came down and said, Iron Man has to get a nose on his mask now. Why? Well, Stan said so. But it makes no, Stan said so. But it makes, Stan said so.
I'm not sure how much experience you have had with it. But I know when I was writing the X-Men, you used to get fan letters and people would think about what they'd write and then they'd write it and then they'd go to the mailbox and drop it in and so on. And now with the internet, it's like, it's just like almost Tourette's or, fan criticism. It's like whatever they're thinking at the time, it's usually vulgar and rude and, I mean, like, do you know that? And like,
I know that. I think it's because the internet, in theory, allows anonymity. So you can say whatever you want, you'll never find you, which is not true. I mean,
because he's found a bunch of people, so if you write anything mean to him, you will find him.
Not me, actually. Harlan Ellison, somebody was posting some of his stories online, and when Harlan said, my copyright and trademark, the money I would earn, people buying copies. I don't understand that. But it's always, when I started at Marvel, the letters came in a letter column. Before, when I was writing Thor, and Thor was always had, at least at that point, one or two girlfriends. Those either Sif or Jane Foster. And I had Jane Foster be his girlfriend. And I got mail every month, several dozen letters. Jane Foster was gone, boring, bring back Sif, yada yada yada. After several months, I decided, okay, maybe they know more than I do. So I was in the middle of an Asgard story. I found a way to do all the story. I literally switched Jane Foster to Sif. Very much as forward and change from not blanket back. And so I got Sif in. And I said, this should solve the problem. Next month I got dozens of letters. Sif is dull and boring. Why don't you